I said hello as a song leader. Now I'll say hello as a teacher. So, hello. Good afternoon. Lovely to see you. As always. We are going to look today at Esau. He'll be the only person we'll look at. There's plenty to say about him, or plenty to consider about him. Whether it'll take 45 minutes is questionable, but don't underestimate me. I've rambled on for that long about lesser things. So, but Esau is, I don't even think I have anything. Is there anything else here? No. So, Esau, as we know, most of us know, he is the oldest son of Isaac, the twin brother of Jacob. And he is the man who gave away his birthright in a moment of petty weakness. Silly weakness, you might say. It was silly. We read about him from Genesis 25 to Genesis 36, and with a reference to him in at least Hebrews 12, verse 16. But since he is one of the more known or talked about through the years, especially he fits into the category of a lot of the kids' stories the Bible stories that we tell the little kids' classes. What are some things that you know about Esau? He was hairy. He was red. Both kind of strange, if you think, to me anyway. Even more so, if we take his name, the name Esau, to have been applied at birth based on his appearance. Now, there are some hairy men out there, right? Some more than others, but some at least believe that he was hairy when he came out. So, I don't even know what to think of that. That possibility. But that's what his name means, by the way. He was a hunter type, outdoors, rugged, kind of man's man of sorts. He had what for the dramatic? He had a flair. He was pretty dramatic. For a man's man, he also had a little drama queen in him, it seems, at least on one occasion, okay? On the infamous occasion, he got a little carried away with how urgent the circumstances really were, if that's what you're talking about. That's what I would call dramatic, was what he did on that occasion. Yeah, I'm starving to death. I will die if I don't get this. That's a little over dramatic. I guess that's most of the things we could say about him. But, yeah, Dean. Yeah, Isaac. Yeah. Yeah. He and his brother, twins though they were, didn't have a whole lot in common. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yep. In Genesis 25, in the account of their births, it says that Isaac prayed to Jehovah for his wife because she was barren. And God granted the prayer, and she conceived. And it says the children struggled together within her. And God answered her prayer that she said, why is this happening to me? What's going on here? And he prophesied that 2 nations are in your womb. And 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. One will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. So that was pretty much the prophecy that sort of foreshadowed their whole life, him and his brother. I don't know. Never thought about it as far as the prophecy. You mean she tried to interpret that to be and chose the one that she might have, because it said the older will serve the younger, so she picked the younger one? Certainly plausible. God went ahead and told her that the younger one, he didn't really say exactly what that meant, in what way will the older serve the younger, but who knows, that might be. Whereas Isaac favored Esau, who was the first, he was the firstborn, the oldest son. Who knows? Dean, do you have something else? Okay. So, it even, very infamously, the first one came out red, and it says, as far as it goes, his body was like a hairy cloak. So, without any further explanation, it might be difficult to understand exactly what that means, other than just what it says. So, yeah, Dean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and it might just be not that it was fabricated or untrue, but his hairiness is going to play a role later in the account of their lives. But it is interesting, to say the least, for a baby to come out with all his body like a hairy cloak. I'd just like to be in the delivery room, on that one, oh, here he comes. Yeah, something's not right here. What a beautiful baby, But yeah. So, they grew up, and we learned, like we already said, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field. Jacob was totally the opposite, it seems, in a lot of ways, and if not every way. It just says he was a quiet man. He dwelt in tents. What does that have to do with anything? Well, it seems that, Esau was a man of the field. He liked to be out. Jacob, just like he was more of a, I want to be in. I want to be inside. So, the notorious legacy of Esau, being the man who bartered his birthright, as the story goes, Jacob was cooking a stew. Must have been some kind of stew. But Esau came in from the field. He was exhausted, and here's his drama queen moment. Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I'm exhausted." And by the way, it says, therefore his name was called Edom. Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright." Just kind of right out there. He's doesn't even try to cloak it at all. He's just like, "Hey, you want some? Give me your birthright." And here he goes. "I'm about to die. What good is my birthright if I'm dead?" So he did it. He swore and gave up his birthright. It's impossible to really get inside Esau's head. There it goes. We don't know what exactly he was thinking. Maybe he thought, "I'm going to borrow that microphone, if you don't mind." You took it? The microphone. Oh, where? Oh, Richard. Sorry, Richard. I'll bring it back. I promise. If I was a betting man, I would probably say Esau didn't really think that was going to happen. Yeah. But maybe I don't know, maybe I'm giving him too much credit. But it seems like one of those things that you don't really think. It would be easy to say, that wasn't serious. We weren't being serious. It's easy to say that when like if you lose a bet or something, yeah, Dean? Well, we know she was pretty tricksy, so she may have said, hey, you're going to have to get that birthright at some point, because God said, I think it's the Hebrews reference, Hebrews 12:16. He was a profane man, and let's see how it actually reads. He despised. Some of them use that word, I think. Hebrews 12:16. Right after the Hall of Fame of Faith in chapter 12. Now he says, "Don't be like Esau." Maybe it doesn't use. Maybe that's not the one that uses that word. He says. It just says he was unholy and sold his birthright for a single meal or for a mess of meat. He's saying, don't be like that. That was rooted in a worldly, physical mentality. In fact, in the ESV there, it actually uses the term sexually immoral and unholy. So maybe he's not connecting the sexually immoral part with Esau, but just the unholy part. But he was profane, which is one of the first thing that our handout says here. He was a profane person, which means earthly. He wasn't a man of the sacred. He was a man of the temporal, physical side, which is exactly what happened. You can see it here. He gave up his birthright and all the blessings that went along with it just in his momentary hunger. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's verse 34. It is in Genesis 25:34. If I would have read one more, I would have seen it. But it says that, in fact, I've got it highlighted, so I should have really seen it. Thus Esau despised his birthright, which is kind of a good case study in what the word despised means, because it essentially means disregard. When God says you despise my word, what they did practically was they just disregarded it. They treated it like it wasn't that important. That's exactly what Esau did with his birthright. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can tell that he was a man who lacked certain principles in the fact that he was willing to do that. His mind was just on what he was in right now. He wasn't thinking about the repercussions of this decision. Yeah, wasn't patient either. Yeah. Yeah, profane God's name is to make it no longer, you're treating it like it's not special when it should be. And that goes with all spiritual things, I would think. We should be able to know the difference and treat them more higher than the things of the world. Yep. Probably. Yeah. Yep. Yep. That was another unfortunate decision. But, he didn't do that to lose his birthright. So Esau is almost, it was just a really dumb moment for him. And if you were, really hungry and somebody was making something and they were like, please give me some of that. I don't know how much he was making, but I'm sure it was enough for both of them. But he said, please give me some. And if you did that and somebody said, okay, give me your car, you'd say, are you crazy? Give you my car? That's ridiculous. I'll just go find something else to eat. Why couldn't Esau think like that? Birthright? You're out of your mind. But he apparently was so caught up in the temporal, momentary, physical, whatever you want to call it, that nothing else, that's what it was. Nothing else was in his mind. So it didn't even occur to him. Or maybe it was that he really didn't take it seriously and didn't think that Jacob was going to hold him to it. But there it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, or maybe he thought this isn't even a valid exchange because the birthright, it's, as far as I know, I'm going to say this because as far as I know this is the case, it wasn't like a piece of paper, that could be signed and like a birth certificate that showed like a legal document that Esau was the one, the firstborn, and all the fine print and all that boring stuff. And he's like, okay, let me grab it out of my pocket and I'll sign it over to you. It was probably more just like an understanding as the firstborn that he had it was his by right because he came out first. So on another way of looking at it is, how can I even give him this? It's not something I can give you because I was born first. And, it's mine. And as long as Daddy don't know about it, then this isn't actually going to happen. And that kind of plays out when it's time for him to give the blessing, because Esau fully expected Isaac to give him that blessing. It seems that he had no idea, he had no inclination that he wasn't going to get it. Yep. Yeah. It could have been that we've done this before God, and therefore God's got a record of it now, which, was kind of the point of any kind of oath before God is, Okay, you've sworn now before God. He knows. It's on record. It's on the divine record, and that's the most serious record it could be on. Yeah. That's why, like Angie said, it's dramatic, over dramatic. That's the danger of having tunnel vision in an earthly sense, I guess, of I don't have the ability to think beyond the moment. You're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble like that in a lot of situations. Will you slide number 6 up just a touch? Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a fascinating study just because, inherently there wouldn't have been anything sinful, I wouldn't guess, about providing yourself with a little food in that situation. But as far as Jesus was concerned, if the devil tells you to do it, I ain't going to do it. And he was obviously, consecrating himself to an extent for a purpose, fasting 40 days and 40 nights, and he wasn't going to give in. Even okay, sure, I could do that, but I'm not going to, because I'm not going to give in. He was able to think beyond the moment. Esau apparently wasn't. And by the way, Jacob even seems to not be fully confident in his ability to prove that he had been given the birthright, because why would he have to go through all this trouble to steal the blessing unless it was talked about? And Isaac said, you didn't have my permission to do that, so I'm going forward as planned, which does seem to be exactly what he was going to do, because he had no intention of giving Jacob the birthright either. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's really a sad situation, taking advantage of their elderly, or the husband, and taking advantage of her husband and helping the child to take advantage of the father. And because we have to remember, they were twins, whether they were identical or not, they would have had enough similarities to fool Jacob, or to Isaac. The only thing he lacked, obvious thing, was the hair. So, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know how his conscience allowed him to go through with it. At that point. But we'll talk about Jacob's side of this later. Esau, he was gone the whole time, right? Getting something for his father, but he comes in and now he hates his brother very strongly. And he vowed to himself, at least, when Dad dies, I'm going to kill my brother Jacob. And that's really the last thing we read about Esau for a long time, because the narrative here in the Genesis record is not following Esau, because Jacob is the son in the same way that it's just like Ishmael and Isaac, their dad and uncle. Ishmael's born, we see him pop up, but then as the story progresses, he leaves, and that's that, because Isaac's the son of promise. Same thing with Jacob and Esau. Esau goes off, really, I guess more accurately, Jacob goes off, but the cameraman, if you will, follows Jacob. And he is under the impression all this time that he can't come home because Esau's going to kill him. Until finally, in one of my favorite reunions in all of the Bible, they end up coming towards each other by total, can't be avoided. And it's such Jacob's a nervous wreck, because he hears that Esau is coming with 400 soldiers, men. And the last thing he heard was his mother saying, I'll send word whenever Esau's cooled down so you can come home. And that word never came. So his assumption naturally would be his anger's never cooled down. So he's coming to kill me. There's no doubt about it. But finally, when they get there, they meet. Genesis 33 verse 4 says, Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. So while our handout, points out, we could take it or leave it, I guess, that his repentance was fruitless, if we want to interpret it as repentance. He didn't seem to take any blame. I'll go that far. He didn't seem to take any blame for this. Jacob was totally wrong in what he did, but he didn't seem to think, I kind of made my own bed a little bit too, because I stupidly gave up the birthright. He just demanded the blessing. So that's where he is saying that his repentance was fruitless. He didn't really seek any pardon for his part in it. He just wanted the blessing, period. But we do see a change in Esau. Something's changed. He's gotten over it. And that seems to mean that he made peace with the fact that he lost his birthright. He's coped, and he's happy where he is. So I love the story of Jacob and Esau mainly because it has such a happy ending. And, a lot of times in life and a lot of times in the scriptures, things don't have a happy ending necessarily, but it did with these two, even though they were at such odds. We see something's totally different. And I think it's all thanks to Esau, really. And whatever part God may have played. But Jacob certainly didn't do anything over the years to try to make it right with Esau. Yeah, Jacob, it's never really brought up. Or their mom. That was just a dirty, dirty thing to do, to trick their father. We don't see that he tried to convince their father, Isaac, that, hey, Esau gave the birthright to me, so we need to have a sit-down, a family meeting, and discuss this, because it's mine. They just went straight to the trickery. But he didn't have it also. Yeah, Isaac wanted to give it to Esau, period. Well, he gave him a blessing. he gave him the blessing of the firstborn. He pronounced this blessing, which I guess is a formal way of kind of, making it official and declaring that you are the heir, the son who's the heir. You're above your brother. You get the blessing, which includes, like Dean mentioned, the bigger portion of the inheritance. And no, it's already done. He got the blessing. And to see that Isaac had every intention of giving it to Esau, you just look at his reaction when he found out what happened. It says he trembled. I lost it here. He trembled violently. The ESV says, Isaac trembled very violently and said, then who was it who hunted game and brought it to me? See, you got to be pretty angry for it to be said that you were. I've never trembled violently. I've had a lot of angry episodes in my life. I've never trembled very violently or anything like that. But he didn't like this. So we could probably learn some lessons about favoritism in this too, and how awful of a situation that is. Yep. Yeah. 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 It's just one of the mind-bending things about God's foreknowledge and prophecy is, did he say that? Did it happen because he said it, or did he say it because he knew it was going to happen? That'll get you thinking for a while. And there's a scene in the movie The Matrix, which so many sermons and lessons could be made from that movie because it's just amazing. But religious parallelism in that, whether they meant it or not. But there's a scene where the main character goes to see this oracle lady, and he walks in and she says, "Oh, and don't worry about the vase." And he says, "What vase?" And he knocks the vase over and breaks it. And he's like, "How did you know?" And she says, "Well, what's really going to get you thinking later on is, would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything?" So it's like, did they do that because God said the younger will serve the older? Or did God say the younger would serve the older because he knew they were going to do that? So, I don't know. I don't have the answer. But I have my opinion, which one I think fits prophecy more. And if you're interested, it's the second one. God said it because... Yeah, and I don't think God would lead them to do this, to get the birthright. But at the same time, and we're kind of getting into Jacob territory here, but it's almost the same problem that Abraham and Sarah had, where they think they got to help God fulfill God's prophecy. And where it's kind of like Mordecai told Esther, it's going to happen somehow. Well, they could have had that idea. God said it's going to happen, so we know it's going to happen. But instead, they had the mentality of, no, he needs a little help. Let's help him out here. But I just love that Esau coped with his own shortcoming, his own part and mistake in it, whether he ever admitted it to himself or not. He was content with where he was when they finally met again. What was it, 21 or 2 years later at this point, or more maybe at this point. We know that Jacob was away for I think 20 years or so, but 14 years working, yeah. If I remember from our journey through the Bible, I think it was about 20 years went by, but between the time between when Jacob left and when in 33, whenever they meet face to face again. So just some lessons here that I sort of just put together, not based on the book really. But number one, every time we sin, we are selling our birthright for a fleeting moment's pleasure. That's what Esau did. But if you think about it, every time we sin, we're doing that. I want this thing right now, and I'm willing to sell not just my birthright, my soul. Put my soul on the line just because I want to enjoy a moment of some kind of pleasure, whether it's just the blink of an eye kind of pleasure or I'm pursuing some sinful path and lifestyle. We're making the same mistake. We can call it, we can roast him as much as we want, but are we really that much different in the end? We need to change the way we think about sin, I think, in general. Number two, it is a grave mistake to sacrifice a divine blessing for anything temporal or earthly. Kind of a similar thing. But, yeah, we know the extreme of a bowl of soup or whatever, bowl of stew, but anything, you put anything in that place. Yep. Number three, Colossians 3:2. Set your mind on things that are above, not on the things that are on the earth. If Esau would have done that, he probably wouldn't have made that choice. But again, the prophecy was going to come true no matter what. Number four, to care more about the earthly than the heavenly makes one unholy. That's the word, according to the ESV, that the Hebrews writer used. Don't be unholy like Esau. What made him unholy? He cared more about earthly things than he did about the heavenly things. And when we do that, we're unholy. Number five, when we realize the error of our ways, the main person to go to is God. The bad thing about Esau's story is we don't ever see him doing that. He didn't go to God for forgiveness, for anything. He went to Daddy. Give me the blessing, come on. I can't accept this, that you gave it to my brother? What are you, blind? Well, yeah, actually I am blind. But number 6, even when we are wronged, we must maintain control over our emotions. Jacob was 1,000%, and Rebekah, in the wrong for what they did. Every step of the way, it was devised in malice. It was, or at least with malicious intent. It was carried out through deceit and malice. Every step of the way, they were wrong. But Esau he didn't do it, but he did let his emotions carry him into an unhealthy place when he planned the murder of his brother. So I think he fully had the intent to do that. The text seems to indicate. It doesn't give any indication that he just said that in a moment of being overheated, but that he planned it. He had his plan. When Isaac dies, I can't do it. I'm not going to do that to Dad. I'm not going to make him have to bear that. But once he's gone, Jacob's gone too. We need to maintain control over our emotions, even when we know that we have been wronged. Knowing that we're in the right doesn't give us the liberty to sin. It doesn't count because I know I'm in the right and I know they're wrong. No, that's not how it works. Number 7, we should always strive to move forward in heart, mind, and soul and avoid getting caught up with the grievances of the past. And let me just say this as carefully as possible. I don't mean to forgive people who don't repent, because I do not believe that is scriptural or appropriate. But so I don't commend Esau. I'm not trying to say that we should commend Esau because he forgave Jacob during those years, because I wouldn't think that would not be an appropriate statement to make, in my opinion. But I will say, like I already said, that Esau does seem to have coped with and not let the rest of his life and his relationship with his brother be ruined. Yeah. Yeah. And, if we want to get right down to it, the way Jacob approached their reunion may have implied somewhat of an apology. Maybe. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but there may have been a little bit more of a message to it than, please don't kill me, brother. But anyway, I don't mean that Esau forgave Jacob and he was right to do so, even though Jacob never repented. But from just strictly Esau's perspective, he didn't let that wrong ruin the rest of his life. And he didn't even let it keep him from loving his brother. Even though he hated his brother 20 years ago, at least, he still loved his brother. And anybody who's ever had a brother or sister can fully understand the way that works. I hate you, but I love you. Right, kids? Right. Thank you. And number 8, people can change. That crossed my mind there, at the end, just because I think a lot of people are convinced that people can't change, including themselves. It really disturbs me that people, when people make statements or comments that seem to imply that they are convinced that people don't change and that I can't change, this is the way God made me, even if that means I am things that I shouldn't be, like selfish and inconsiderate and whatever else. People can't change. Well, if we tell ourselves that people can't change, that's really going to put a hamper on our evangelism, isn't it? People can't change. What are we doing? What's the point? But it's not true. People can change. Esau changed. We don't know what happened over the last 20 years that helped him change, but something did. And he is proof that people can change. Yep. Yeah. They're supposed to, yeah. Transformation. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So that it's not only that people can change, they have to change to be saved. It's not a matter of I haven't changed, but except that I'm saved now and I wasn't before. That's not how it works. We should change as much as we can. Find our weaknesses, change our weaknesses, and it is possible. Old habits, bad habits, die hard, or whatever however the saying goes. But that doesn't mean they still die. They can still die. For something to die hard is different than to not ever die. So nobody ever said it was easy, but it is possible. And we should have faith in ourselves that we can change. We should have faith in others that they can change.